good morning, Sister Nadine.
Good morning, Jody.
Yes, I'm delighted to be able to interview you today, Sister Nadine Foley, formerly known as Sister Thomas Aquin.
Yeah.
Former prioress, former general council person, former vicaress, former president of the LCWR. Oh my, where did you come from, Nadine?
Well, I have no current identity. I'm just former this and former that and former something else.
But from whence did you come?
Here?
Yes.
Well, I came from Newberry, Michigan, which is in the Upper Peninsula, and I came to Siena Heights College in 1941.
Now, I happened to look up the current population of Newberry, like 1,500 people. Was it that small?
Well, it used to be twice that. It used to be 3,000.
And you come from a family of how many brothers and sisters?
I have 5 brothers and 2 sisters.
And they're all living on this earth?
They're all living at the present time.
Oh, my. One was just here for during the Lenten season, correct?
Easter.
Easter.
My brother Mike and his daughter Maura.
And she inherited your vocal gifts.
She got them somewhere. I'm not sure where.
It was beautiful, wasn't it? Yes.
I thought so.
Well, I didn't mention that at the beginning. Besides the offices you've held, you are a cantor. Your voice is extraordinary, even at your age. I understand there's a birthday coming up.
Yes.
And would you mind giving us the
I'll be
secret?
92.
Oh my! Is that how old your mother was when she?
My mother died at 94.
She was 94.
Yes.
Are you looking forward to be 94?
Yes.
If I were to see a picture of your mother, what would I see you in that picture?
Yes, you would.
So you're the perfect clone.
Yes, I am.
And does your
Except she had brown eyes, and I don't.
How did you happen to come to Siena from Newberry? Certainly our sisters weren't there, were they?
Not in the beginning. I had a strange idea that I wanted to go to a Catholic college. And the only one I ever heard of was Marygrove. And my best friend, who was not a Catholic, but who had older siblings, all of whom had gone to college, when she heard that I wanted to go to Marygrove, I had heard about Marygrove, she went to her older brothers and sisters, some of them, and asked about this. And she came back to me and she said, "You can't go there, that's too expensive." Well, I didn't know of any other Catholic college, but my grandfather subscribed to the Extension magazine, and there were little 1-inch ads on the back pages. And one day I saw this little ad for Siena Heights College. And that was the beginning, that I owe it all to that little ad.
Amazing.
But the sisters that summer, or I think it was that fall, I was a junior in high school, they came to open a catechetical center. And my mother said, well, they must know about that Siena Heights place because they're from Adrian. So we began talking to them. And that's how it happened.
Oh, my. Did you receive a scholarship to
Oh,
Siena?
yes, a scholarship of $300.
Which was?
Which covered board, room, tuition, and books.
Amazing. I mean, it would buy today one book probably.
Maybe. Maybe.
Nadine, were you there all 4 years?
Yes.
And who was the sister? All Adrian Dominicans on the staff.
Oh, yes.
Yes. And who was the president of?
Well, there wasn't a president other than Mother Gerald, and that was fairly typical of women's colleges associated with religious congregations. The prioress, or the head of the order, was usually the president. But Sister Benedicta Marie was the active, for all practical purposes. She was the president, but I think her title was dean.
Did you have Sister Ann Joachim along the line?
I did have her for one course.
Mm-hmm. And any other sisters that
Well,
made an impact on you?
I had Sister Agneta, Sister Miriam Michael, Sister Patrick Jerome, Sister Jerome, Sister Philomena.
And which sister lured you to the Adrian Dominican?
Lord is a good word. Sister Patrick Jerome. In my sophomore year, she started telling me that I had a vocation. And I was new to religious life, actually, because we didn't have sisters in Newberry. And I was not remotely interested.
But
she pursued me for 2 years. And finally I decided, well, I may as well give it a try, because I thought they'd send me home anyway.
During those 2 years, did you happen to meet Mother Gerald?
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
How did that happen?
Well, first of all, she was a presence that we were aware of. I didn't quite understand who she was. All I knew was that when I was in the chorus, and when we would line up on the stage, we would stand and stand and stand because we had to wait for Mother Gerald, and I never understood that. I thought it was time we should start. However, one day, I think I was a junior at the time, Sister Patrick Jerome met me in the hall and asked me to go with her over to the Mother House, which we didn't often do. And I said, or I thought that she wanted somebody to carry something. So I went along, and she sat me in the parlor opposite Mother Gerald's office. I didn't know it was Mother Gerald's office, but I was sitting there twiddling my thumbs, wondering why I was there, because Sister Patrick Jerome disappeared, when all of a sudden Mother Gerald walked in. And she looked at me and she said, I understand you want to enter the congregation. And I just looked at her and I said, the idea appalls me.
Wow.
And she turned around and left. When she finally, sometime later, a year or more later, when she was putting the veil on my head as postulant, she said, what was that big word you used with me?
Oh my. And here you come full circle writing about her life.
Yes, yes.
And that's a book you co-authored just recently.
Yes.
What insights did you come to through your research of Mother Gerald that you weren't aware of before?
I knew her pretty well, and I had my own assessment of who she was, but I didn't have any particular insights. I do think that she had one aim in life as far as the congregation. She wanted to be the biggest and the best. She had tremendous confidence in the sisters. And she would send them out to do rather amazing things. And she never told them what to do, but she expected them to succeed. And they did.
For instance?
Well, for instance, Barry. She sent 12 sisters down there in the beginning and expected them to make a go of the place. Same with the hospital in California. She sent 3 sisters to start a hospital, only one of whom was a nurse. The other 2 were not.
Well, as you said, great confidence in the sisters. I just know that she had great respect for the clergy and the hierarchy.
I wouldn't even say respect. I mean, she comes from that, or she came from that time when the priest was another Christ, and the priest required the greatest reverence and respect, and she accorded that to the priests. But she also formed very close relationships with some bishops who helped her along the way. There was Bishop Hoban. He had gone way back in our history, even before her, but she became very close to him, very close to the apostolic delegate. And of course she had her own brother, Barry, in Florida. And I hate to put it in these terms, but in a sense I would say she could work the system. She knew how to, her relationships with these bishops really assisted her. And I'm very sure that when she was appointed to that group that started the, ultimately they started the Conference of Major Superiors of Women, I'm sure that came through her relationship with the apostolic delegate, that she was appointed to chair the group of women that organized that.
And didn't she invite the bishops and the apostolic delegate to the Florida?
Oh, yes.
West Palm, right?
That was one of her things that she made available to anybody, any priest who was ill or needed rest. She would offer not just West Palm, but that was the principal place. But some of our places in California, in the Southwest, she would send them there, and the sisters would take care of them. And she did that over and over again.
Nadine, what did your first appointment card say? That you are hereby missioned to
St. Pat's in Miami Beach.
Oh my. From Newberry to Miami. Ooh. And what was that like for you?
Well, it was hot.
Was that Bishop Barry's parish?
Monsignor Barry.
Monsignor Barry.
In fact, when I went there, which was not my idea of where I wanted to go, but you went where you were sent. And Mother Gerald said to me before I left, "My brother will take care of you." I wasn't quite sure what that meant.
Did you ever find out?
Well, he was his own person, and he would walk through the halls of the school and walk into your classroom for whatever. He would call a student out, he was in charge. And he would come by and distribute the report cards and have his bit to say to some of the students that he knew a little better than others.
Well, Nadine, from West Palm, did you fly to Washington, D.C. to study for your doctorate?
No, from there I did go to Catholic University, but it was for biology. And I remember Mother Gerald was visiting after we had our appointments, and I happened to be in the front hall when she was there, and no one else was around. And I took all the courage I had, and I said to her, "Mother, I don't really like biology." And she said, "You do what you're told."
Wow.
And that was that.
Amen. So did you go to Catholic U for that?
For 2 years.
And then you taught
And then
that when
from
you came
there-
back, correct?
Then from there I left and I went to St. Teresa's for a year, St. Mary's, downtown Adrian, back down to West Palm Beach, and then I got the call in the summertime to come up to Adrian, and that's when Sister Bertha told me in great secrecy that I was going to go to Catholic University to study philosophy.
Just what you dreamed of your whole life long.
Well, I didn't know much about that before I went to college.
Well, when I first came as a older sister to Siena, you were teaching some scripture. So how did that come into your life?
Well, that's one of those things you do what you're told. I mean, I was assigned to Siena, I think it was just 1 year, but they needed somebody to teach it. So I learned it at the same time I was teaching it, and it turned out to be a pretty good course.
I remember hearing students say how much they love that, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow, you were able to be in the Southwest and enjoy the beauty of the Albuquerque area. What was your ministry in Albuquerque, Nadine?
Well, I was sent there with Sister Mary Therese Crimmins to the Newman Center. And that, you know, Newman Centers were difficult because a lot of students never came near them. But I developed some close relationships there. And it was an interesting experience. The Dominican Fathers were there.
As I recall, you knew the Lieutenant Governor of Michigan.
Oh, Connie Binsfield.
And how did that relationship come about?
Well, when I was ready to go to Siena Heights at the very beginning, I had to take the train. And I was told from somebody here in Adrian that there would be some girls coming from Munising who would be on the same train. And that turned out to be Connie Burby at the time and her cousin Sue Schultes. And so we traveled together. And that was the first time in 4 years that we traveled together. And we became very good friends. It was later on that Connie was elected lieutenant governor. And we kept in contact. She died a couple of years ago now.
At the time of remembering, I was in the, I forget what we called it in Archangelis, the meeting room there, where we used to have Mass when we were students in that area, or dances in that area.
It closed off.
Yes. But you gave a presentation on women in society and the lack of respect that women were receiving. But you raised my awareness. How did your interest develop in women's issues?
Well, maybe because I grew up with 5 brothers. And I had our Irish grandfather was a part of our household. And he, for example, said that boys should never do dishes. That was girls' work. My mother did not believe that, nor did she put it into practice. They did dishes along with the rest of us. So I think it was kind of, there from the beginning. My brothers would be altar boys, and I hear them practicing Latin, and I would say to myself, I could do that. I could say that Latin just as well as they could. I wasn't interested in being an altar person, but I just realized that there was a difference. So it was kind of in the bones, you might say. And I don't know where it went from there. I think as things were rising in society in general, I just could identify with that.
Well, you helped organize one of the first women's ordination conferences, did you not?
Yes, I chaired the committee that organized it.
And how did that come about, Nadine?
Well, I was on the council at the time, and we did not have specifically assigned areas that were our responsibilities. And Mary Lou Putro knew Mary Lynch, a laywoman who had this idea of women's ordination. And she was pursuing Mary Lou to take part in a meeting she was going to have in Chicago. And Mary Lou was not able to go, and she called me and asked me if I would go. So having little else to do, I went. And that was the start of the thing, because they organized a committee, and I thought, well, I'll serve on the committee. And Mary Lynch was the chair of the committee. She had called this meeting in Chicago. But it turned out that Mary was not able really to handle the organization. So we had to divide up the responsibilities, and I became the chair. And we worked to bring it off.
Where was this gathering? Was it called a convention?
It was in Detroit.
Or a conference?
Well, it was just it had no formal. It was just a meeting on the question of ordination of women.
In Detroit, how many came to that first meeting?
Well, they filled the place to capacity. I forget what it was, but then we had to turn away people because with the fire laws and everything else, you couldn't add a lot of people. So a lot of people were turned away, but the full complement, well, maybe 800 to 1,000 people came to it.
I can't imagine that happening today without serious repercussions.
Well, there were repercussions then. You know, Cardinal Dearden, when he learned of it, had some questions, and so it was decided that I should go and talk with him, and Rosemary Ferguson went with me. She was the prioress at the time. And the main thing that I remember was the Cardinal looking at us quizzically and saying, "Who are these women?" And I think that question was addressed when we actually had the program.
Was he present?
No, he didn't. And he did not tell us we couldn't have that meeting
Amazing,
either.
amazing.
But he sent a couple of auxiliary bishops to see what was going on.
Probably Bishop Untner.
Well, no,
No.
it wasn't Untner.
Shaner,
It was
Bishop Shaner.
yeah. But
Well,
he
that was historic, Nadine.
Yes, it was.
Yes. Do they still have those gatherings for women's
Well,
ordination?
I think they do, but I gave up on it after a while because some tension arose within the people who were involved. And I thought, well, I'm not personally interested in being ordained, so I got into it because I felt that it was the pinnacle issue that subsumed all the other issues related to women in the church, women generally.
Is there anyone of the hierarchy that you met during your years in leadership that you had great respect for?
Well, there were several, but right now I can't think of their names. But
Dearden would be one of them, correct?
Cardinal Dearden, definitely.
Yeah.
Although I didn't have a lot of personal relationships with him, but that one was probably the closest I came to him.
During your time as prioress, did they have meetings in Rome of all the major superiors?
Well, the International Union of Superiors General, first of all, there was every 3 years there's a general meeting of Superiors General worldwide. But then there was a committee of UISG, and I was on that. and that met every 3 years. No, every year. So I went to Rome a lot. And I also, went with our constitutions.
Oh, yes. God bless you.
And
You and Miriam.
oh yeah, well, Sharon Weber went simply because she was going to the UISG, and Annalise Senate. But on this one occasion, we were sitting around the table, and they were looking at our constitutions, and there was a Carmelite priest from Ireland on their committee. And he looked at this thing and he said, I noticed that you use the word women a lot. And I said, well, I wasn't aware we overly used the word women. And he said, well, you don't want to use a word that's just a fad.
Oh, dear. Did you hold your breath on that one?
Well, I don't know how you respond to anything like that, but that's what he said. And the only place we used it actually was in the formation area, a woman entering or I think he wanted us to say sister or something.
Something holy.
Yeah.
Something. Nadine, you are one of the reasons why we are doing interviews these days.
Oh, yes?
When I was at Weber, I remember hearing the story, and maybe you can elaborate on this, of a sister here in Maria asking to see the prioress of the congregation.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. I can't think of her name right now, but I received a message that this sister wanted to see me, and she was an older sister, and eventually I got over there, and I said to her, Sister, you said you wanted to see me. And she looked at me and she said, I just wanted to be known.
Wow.
And that said a lot about
Yes.
how we are with one another.
Well, we didn't know one another's last name even.
No. But then on the other hand, I think perhaps she would know who was in leadership, but she wasn't sure the people in leadership knew her.
Yes.
So why would she otherwise want to see somebody on the council or the priors? I just want to be known.
Well, Nadine, before we end, I have to share this one gift you have given to me. When you left office in the 80s, or was it early 90s?
It was
86 to 82 to 90. 82.
86 to 92.
Yes.
Pardon me.
Well, you stayed at Weber for a while after you left office, but I remember practically during the first week, you were out in front of Madden on your knees planting flowers.
With Jane Payette.
With Jane Payette. And I just was so moved by that. I mean, here you had been telling people to plant the flowers, and now you are planting the flowers. So thank you for that gift, and thank you for all that you have done and been to the Adrian Dominican Sisters and to the leadership of women religious here in the United States.
Well, we just do what we can do,
just
or what we're called to do.
Because the appointment said. Do you have any word that you would like to give our sister who's going to be professed this April, Marilyn Yanis?
Well, I received her vows the first time, and it's just a delightful thing to see her return to the congregation. And I think that one of the things that draws many people to us, not just our own sisters, but those who work for us, is the kind of atmosphere that we try to maintain here, of acceptance and respect and care for one another. And I think that's a great gift. And it's a way of preaching, incidentally.
And what would you wish for Marilyn's life to come?
For what?
For Marilyn's life in the congregation.
Well, I hope that she's happy.
Amen.
And I hope she finds her niche in the congregation, that she finds a fruitful ministry, that she preaches the Word of God through who she is and what she does.
Thank you so much, Nadine.